Greetings, this is the Questing GM. So this is not the Out of the Abyss Prep Quest video. So Wizards has just recently released a new Unearthing the Arcana for the month of May, and as per tradition of me just going through the usual Unearthing the Arcana just to go have a read through about it, and maybe finding out a few new things about what's going on, and maybe also having some remarks or comments about the new Unearthing the Arcana. So the Unearthing the Arcana for this month is a revision of the Artificer class. I wouldn't really call it a revision, more than it's more of an addition. Like they have added a few new things to the Artificer class. Namely would be 2 new subclasses, some new infusions, and some minor changes here and there in terms of like the spell list and the multi-classing rules. So I don't think this was going to be a very long video like the last one. I had to basically just review the entire class. So I'll be just focusing mainly on what are the what are the additions that have been given to the Artificer class. And I'm not expecting anything major except for maybe the subclasses themselves. But we'll see, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to do any big comparisons between this version of the Artificer with the previous version, because I don't think there's any actual changes in terms of what the Artificer is, but it's more of just new options, and I think this video is probably just only focused on that. It's just about looking at all the new options. And it's also quite timely that this is that this revision is this new update of the Artificer class came up because Wizards of the Coast seems to have just announced at the end of the stream for Descent into Avernus that there will be a Eberron hardcover book coming out in the future. I have a feeling this is probably going to be the one that will be released next year. Although the big question for me is actually, is this the expected publication, hardcover publication, or the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron, or is this going to be an entire campaign setting book, which so far we only have the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide as the only so-called fully campaign setting type book, or is it going to be a published module, which will insert in some Eberron lore and being a minor regional book alongside an adventure. So I think there's those. I mean, depending on the answer of Wizards of the Coast to do whichever of these, I think it's going to be a really important factor in me getting back into Eberron. I like the setting, and I think there's plenty of materials already provided in the 3.5 era, and updated for 4th edition. And I'm not even sure what sort of updates can they do for 5th edition. I believe Keith Baker might have talked about being involved with some sort of consulting gig or some development gig, which it's safe to assume that it's Eberron related. But I don't know if they're actually pushing any kind of any canon or timeline jump in 5th edition, which I highly doubt it, based on past behaviors and performances of Wizards of the Coast for 5th edition. But it all comes down to and if this new version of the Artificer, of this 5th edition rendition of the Artificer class is going to be in that hardcover book, then it's most likely going to be just the publication of the Wayfinder's Guide. And I'm not going to be too happy about that news, especially, and I think for the people who bought the Wayfinder's Guide, and and if they are going to be forced to have to buy the hardcover to get the final official version from the PDF, I don't think that's going to be good news for anyone. But in any case, I think that's it's part of the reason why I decided to do this Unearthing the Arcana for the Artificer class now is because of the news that's impending. So let's just not get too ahead of ourselves, and let's just see what is the current state of the Artificer class right now. and we'll see if there are any more iterations in the future, or this may be the actual final version that we will see in a maybe in a pretty long time, or not so far ahead in a long time. So I'm just gonna jump straight ahead into the new subclasses of the in the new version of the Artificer class. I haven't done step-by-step check of everything different in the previous version and the current version. But from what I gathered so far, there seems to have nothing has been changed at all. Jeremy Crawford, during in his tweet when he was announcing the new Artificer class, basically just outline what has been added, and he didn't mention anything about changes. So I'm just gonna take that at face value, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be interested in actually skimming both versions of the document to find something that is different that was not mentioned by Jeremy Crawford himself. In that way, I think the video will also be much shorter in that. So jumping straight into the first subclass of the Artificer is the Archivist. Now, that would be on page 7 of the new one. So what are the best ways to store vast amounts of information? That question has occupied chroniclers and librarians for centuries. Scrolls and books were the finest information storing methods for a long time, but the first archivists imagined something greater, storing information in a real or an artificial mind. What library could match a mental archive capable of accessing information in seconds? As they work towards this goal, archivists have become masters of storing knowledge and creating artificial intelligence fueled by magic. These techniques have yet to be perfected and institutionalized, and of all artificers, archivists are the most cutting edge of arcane science. So flavor-wise, this is something entirely new from my understanding of the Artificer in Eberron, and but that's already being being given a disclaimer that this is something entirely new in the world of Artificers in Eberron. So I'm not sure if I'm into the idea. I guess you could take some of the relevance into it in the sense that this is basically trying to create some form of AI, and giving sentience, or maybe giving sentience or consciousness, or even just knowledge to an object. I'm not sure. I'm not too sold on this concept by itself. I think there needs to be some sort of setting explanation, or some sort of setting catalyst of why this is becoming the new thing. And I'm not even sure exactly what role is this subclass supposed to fill, both in terms of mechanics and flavor for the setting. I don't think Eberron and Artificers in Eberron would be better for it without the Archivist. But anyway, let's just not get too ahead of ourselves. That's just my first impressions, but let's just get into the nitty-gritty and class features, subclass features. So tools of the trade, this is standard for all subclasses that I've seen so far, which means they basically get a new proficiency in certain tools, and if they don't already have them, they will get a new ones. For the Archivist, the two proficiencies would be the calligrapher supplies and the forgery kit, and they get them for free if they don't already have them. And they are bonus for crafting, which means when an Artificer subclass gains the tools of the trade feature, they also get certain bonuses or discount when making certain types of magic items. So in the case of the Archivist, is naturally the scrolls, which will take a quarter of the normal time and cost you half as much as the usual gold. So that's all in line with the system. Forgery kit is an interesting choice, but I think if you kind of have need to imprint an object, then the forgery kit is probably like the next best thing to the wood carvers or the blacksmith. Alright, so Archivist spells, standard for every subclass as well. They get a new set of spells that they know, or spells prepared, really like the domain spells of the clerics. So the Archivist at level 3 gets comprehend languages and dissonant whispers, detect thoughts and locate objects at 5th level. 9th level they get hypnotic pattern and tongues. 13th level they get locate creature, phantasmal killer. 17th level legend lore and modify memory. So you're seeing here, I believe it seems to be a lot of the enchantment and divination school. believe Dissonant Whispers is an enchantment spell. Let me just do a quick check on that. Which I think, yeah, it's an enchantment spell. Dissonant Whispers is an enchantment spell, which I think, I think that's generally in line with the flavor. Hypnotic Pattern at 9th level though. That's I think a little bit too far off. Because that's a 3rd level spell, yeah. But will you trade Hypnotic Pattern for Detect Thoughts or Locate Object? Locate Object is a little weird for me because it's not necessary. It doesn't seem necessarily to fit in very well with the Archivist spells. But yeah, Hypnotic Pattern will become a little bit underutilized at 9th level, I believe. But then again, what level is Tongues? Tongues is also a 3rd level spell. Yeah, but I guess that's just a way of balancing the Archivist. Although it's a strange place, for me to balance something like that. All right, Artificial Mind. At 3rd level, you discover how to awaken the mind inside an object. Whenever you finish a long rest and your calligrapher's supplies are with you, you can magically rouse a keen mind within a tiny non-magical object on which you write mystical symbols. The object is a magic item while the mind is inside it, and you can use it as a spellcasting focus. If you already have an artificial mind from this feature, the first one immediately dissipates. The magic item has the following properties. Telepathic Advisor. The artificial mind telepathically supplies you with advice and information about certain topics. While the item is on your person, you have proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. The item's main material determines which skills you can choose from, as shown in Artificial Mind table in the skill proficiencies column. For the nature of the object affects the mind's knowledge. Alright, so looking at the table, the Artificial Mind table, we have main materials, which is animal, mineral, or plant. And the skill proficiencies it gives, for plants, they will give animal handling, insight, medicine, perception, and survival. For minerals, it will be deception, intimidation, performance, persuasion, and for plant, it will be arcana, history, investigation, nature, and religion. So each material has more than 2, and it's a choice for the Artificer to pick 2 of those. Okay, but this is just giving extra proficiency to the Artificer who starts with or only has 2, and then they get another 2 more if they were the Archivist subclass, so that's 4. But I have a feeling that there are some overlaps here in terms that some of the Artificer, some of the skill proficiencies here that's provided by the Telepathic Advisor might be overlapping with some of the proficiencies that they are allowed to pick. That's just it. So Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, Perception, these are already available to the Artificer class itself as a choice. So this Telepathic Advisors can be used as a means to cover up any gaps that the Artificers didn't want to take, and the idea here is you can switch proficiencies as well. So I think on a optimal level, the Artificer, the Archivist will probably want to change materials to gain proficiency in classes, to proficiency in skills that the Artificer by itself will not be able to access. But then again, at the same time, they can also take skills. They can also take proficiencies that they didn't take when they were in the class. Interesting bonus, but there's more to it. There's more to it for the Artificial Mind. So the next feature it has is Manifest Mind. As a bonus action while the item is in your person, you can cause the mind to manifest as a tiny spectral presence hovering in the occupied space of your choice within 60 feet of you. This person is intangible, invulnerable, and shades dim light in 10-foot radius. You determine the appearance. The Artificial Mind table offers suggested appearance based on the object's material. While manifested, the spectral mind can hear and see, and has dark vision with a range of 60 feet. As an action, you can hear and see using the mind's senses instead of your own until your concentration ends. As if concentrating on the spell. As a bonus action, you can cause the spectral mind to hover up to 30 feet To an unoccupied space that you or it can see. It can pass through creatures but not objects. The spectral mind manifesting. The spectral stops manifesting if it is ever more than 300 feet away from its magic item, or if you dismiss it as a bonus action. When you cast an Artificer spell on your turn, you can cast it as if you were the spectral mind's space instead of your own. It's using its senses. You can do so a number of times per day equal to your intelligence modifier at least once, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So this is another feature property of the artificial mind that comes up that I'm starting to feel is slowly veering towards the more powerful side, because this is basically a familiar, but you remember that this is a familiar that is not governed by any kind of statistics, doesn't have any current stats, and therefore not as easy to kill. And the fact that this is made intangible and invulnerable means it's actually unkillable. It's like a way better version of familiar. It shades 10-foot light radius. It has 60 feet of dark vision. It can appear 60 feet away, and it cannot be more than 300 feet from the person. And you can cast spells through it, although the only downside is that you have to concentrate when you have the manifest mind on. That means you cannot cast another concentration spell through that uses the senses of the manifest mind. Although as a scouting tool, this is definitely less risky than the familiar. Although it has that limitation of that it can only pass through creatures but not objects, and it requires bonus actions to call, to summon, and also a bonus action to dismiss. Well, I mean, if you have an Artificer and a Wizard in your party, then you can't, and the Archivist at that, you can kind of just tell the Archivist to. I mean, the Archivist Artificer is probably like the new Scout right now. Than other forms, other classes at the moment. Alright, information overload. It's an action while the item is in your person. You can try to magically overload the thoughts of one creature you or the mind can see that is within 5 feet of the manifested mind, channeling a jump of information from the artificial mind. Unless the target succeeds in an intelligence saving throw against yourself, save DC, the target takes 1d psychic damage, and the next attack roll against it before the end of your next turn has advantage, and it is temporarily too distracted to defend itself well. Damage increases by 1d8 when you reach 5th, 11th 3d8, and 17th level 4d8 in this class. Whenever you do damage with this feature, you can expand a spell slot to deal extra damage to the target. The extra damage is 2d8 for first level, plus 1d8 for each spell. So this is actually another very powerful ability of the Archivist, of the Artificial Mind feature. Generally, this is pretty much a smite spell, except that has a intelligence save DC, and it scales according. I think it's looking to be scaling as cantrips. So this is pretty much like a cantrip that is doesn't take up a spell slot, that doesn't take any preparations or known spell slot. Yeah, so yeah, it scales as a cantrip. And it can be increased furthermore. So what are we looking at? We are looking at something like if you have the manifested mind out, and you're gonna just attack someone with it, and you don't have any good first level spells to use it on, you're gonna do a 3d8 damage just by being close. 3d8 psychic damage. Yes, be within 5 feet. And you can also do this 5 feet off the manifested mind, yeah, but let's remember the fact that you can actually send the manifested mind away from you up to 300 feet, so that's pretty much like a homing missile in its own way. So I'm not sure this. I'm not too sure about this. This could maybe have some overlaps with the artillerists, I believe, but I think the artillerists overlapping is already one thing, in the sense that why have two subclasses that do pretty much the same thing. And now I'm just going through the alchemical homunculus. Doesn't do D8 damage, and the artillerist arcane turrets. Yeah, they do D8 damage, but they don't scale. That's the other thing. So in just one feature, one feature alone for the archivist, things seems to be leaning pretty heavily on its capabilities. What's the next one? So we have the next feature is the mind network. All right. At 6th level, you learn how to use your artificers to access minds, both to communicate and to harm. Magical telephony. While you have your artificial mind item on your person, you can communicate telepathically with anyone carrying an item bearing one of your artificer infusions, as the mind transmits your thoughts to each other. That person can also communicate telepathically with you as long as they have the item. This two-way communication can even cross planet boundaries. That's actually really powerful for a lot of the usual means of communication spells. So the only thing that's restricting this is the number of infused items that the artificer can give. And I think the maximum for that is not a lot. I think the maximum for that is up to 8, if I'm not mistaken. And that's assuming that you're only putting 1 infusion. Oh, sorry, 5. Maximum is 5 infused items. And that's on. I'm not sure. I don't think that's assuming that you put more than 1 infusion on an item. I can't remember if you are even allowed to do that. So. First, this is 6th level. So 6th level telepathic communication may not seem like a big deal, but it will definitely, take up, it will definitely relieve a lot of space and for the artificer to have to prepare any sort of means of communication with the party, and even save, the spellcasting classes or having to prepare any sort of communications spells as well. So it has a good utility use. It's still a little awkward for me in terms of flavor, but but no real complaints for it, I think. Alright, psychic damage. When you make a psychic damage roll for an artificer spell or for information overload, you gain a bonus to the damage roll equal to the intelligence modifier, minimum bonus of +1. So now we're talking about 1d8 or 3 or a class feature that allows you to make multiple d8s plus your intelligence modifier. That makes it quite a substantial spell-like ability, even though we don't use that term anymore. But most spells in 5e no longer have the modifier added to it. But now, and here it is. You have a class that allows you to add your modifiers, and it's presumably the primary modifier, primary ability modifier, and this also applies to spells as well as the information overload. So that's actually quite a powerful thing, actually. What kind of damage range are we looking at? Quite a bit. It's probably not as doesn't seem overly powerful, but I think the numbers definitely would favor more on the archivist side more. Alright, so the last class feature for the archivist. At 14th level, your artificial mind is able to receive and transmit more information than ever before. Mind overload. When you expand a spell slot to increase the damage of information overload, the target must succeed an intelligence trail against your spell save DC or be stunned until the end of the next turn. So there's additional effects now. It's spells plus intelligence modifier. It's D8 plus intelligence modifiers and stun. And infoportation. It's an action while your artificial mind magic item is on your person. You can cause the mind to turn you into pure information, teleporting you to the unoccupied space nearest to the spectral mind or to an item bearing one of your artificer infusions, where you physically reappear. You can teleport in this way once for free and must finish a long rest before doing so again. You can also use this special ability by expanding a spell slot of 2nd level or higher. Okay, so this is done at 14th level, and it requires you can only do the first one free, the second and you can do the first one free before a long rest, or you can spend any spell slot of second and higher to teleport to where the spectral mine is. At 14 level, I don't think that's a huge deal. By then, and it's a pretty awkward ability, I guess. And here's the thing. I guess the core concept of the spectrum mine of the what's it called again? Mind's eye, something? No. The artificial mind, yeah. The core concept is that everything revolves around the artificial mind. You can teleport with it, you can deal damage with it, you can stun someone with it, you can talk to someone with it. You can gain, you can scout around with it. So there's an over emphasis on the artificial mind ability, and basically the entire subclass runs on it. I can't think of any current class features that would supplement well with the Archivist so far, other than the fact that other than the infused item part of it. Because I don't think it mentions that the artificial mind object, it becomes a magic item, but it doesn't have to be infused. It doesn't take up any infusion slot. Maybe there would have been a balancing factor to it, that if they can only turn on the artificial mind of an infused item, but given what it can do without doing that, without infusing, the class, it feels a little spotty in terms of what it can actually do. I might have expected that the artificial mind itself would be able to act more like a familiar, or but then again, that sort of just overlaps with the alchemical homunculus. So I don't know. I'm just really not too. I'm not really into the concept and the execution of the Archivist. I mean, it's probably just cool to have it as an option, but I'm not too entirely stoked to want to play this subclass. But maybe down the road I'll change my mind. For now, nothing seems to be overly impressive for me, both in flavor and mechanics maybe, but not in flavor. All right. So the next subclass is called the Battlesmith. So armies require protection, and someone has to put things back together. Okay, I just need to charge my phone. I think it should be better now. Yep. All right. Armies require protection, and someone has to put things back together if defenses fail. Combination of protector and medic. A battlesmith is an expert of defending others and repairing both material and personnel. To aid in their work, battlesmiths are usually accompanied by an iron defender, a protective companion of their own creation. Many soldiers tell stories of nearly dying before being saved by a battlesmith and an iron defender. Battlesmiths play a key role in House Canis' work on battle constructs and the original Warforged, and after the last war, these artificers led efforts to aid those who were injured in war's horrific battles. I can see this has a very good historical flavor to the Eberron world, especially the whole relationship with House Canis and the Warforgers, and them probably being like medics and prosthetic experts in a way after the last war. But I feel like that role has sort of been filled by the artillerists. This is just probably like they're just taking a facet of the artillerists and making a full-blown subclass. And even the name Battlesmith just doesn't seem to indicate what it actually does, or what it actually does according to the description. Apparently this is the one that I'm hearing a lot of criticisms or a lot of commentary about in this new version of the Artificer's class. But let's just go through it and let's see where it goes. So the tools of the trade that they get would be leatherworks tools and smith's tools.
which makes a lot of sense if you're looking at it from the Warforged creation aspect of it. You get them for free, and the magic item category that they get discounts on is armor, which also perfectly makes sense. But although I don't think that's the same for, I don't think the artillerist gets, tools of the trade for weapons. I think they get theirs for wands, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check. Yep, the artillerist gets it for wands, but for the battlesmith they get it for armor. I may be a little bit picky to say that they should be allowed to choose either one, but the emphasis here seems to be on the defensive side, that the battlesmiths are supposed to be the defense, and possibly even like technically the tanks of the party, and they actually have an actual iron defender, tailing alongside with them. So yeah, that seems to make more sense. Alright, battlesmith spells. That third level they get heroism and shearing smite. Fifth level they get branding smite and warding bond. Ninth level they get aura vitality and blinding smite. 13th level aura purity, staggering smite. 13th level they get banishing smite, mass cure wounds. Now that's strangely a lot of smite spells for someone who's supposed to be a defender. I may have been alright if there was some sort of cure wounds or healing spells involved, although I think that's already in the spell list. Yeah, that's already in the Artificer spell list. But I guess they're definitely more, like healing word can definitely be in the Battlesmith spell list because it's not in the Artificer spell list. So I would have probably liked to see more healing related, defense related spells, like Shield of Faith can be here for, and I wouldn't have mind. I think Shield of Faith is already in the Artificer spell list. I'm guessing Shield is also there. Shield is not in the Artificer spell list, and why isn't it here? Just a very odd choice of spell. I like the auras are there, but and the funny thing is most of this seems to be paladin spells. So I guess that's kind of the theme they're going for. It's a paladin version of the Artificer. I guess that's all right from a concept perspective, but it's just very weird to see all these smite spells on what's supposed to be a defender type class. Alright, so anyways, moving on. Battle ready. When you reach third level, your combat training and your experiments with magic have paid off in two ways. This is something I've noticed in the new subclasses, and maybe even in the Artificer class and the other subclasses in general, is that they have a lot of features, single features that do multiple things, and I'm not a real fan of that because that actually expands the value of a single class feature within a single subclass. I much prefer a more elegant and simplified class feature that only does one thing or does that one thing well, rather than trying to fit many concepts into that one thing, because it just makes the class it makes it very difficult to understand what the class feature is supposed to do until you read the actual mechanics of it. And even then it can have it can be even contrasting features that doesn't really explain the name of the class feature itself. So I'm definitely not in favor of that Archivist method of artificial mind having like 3 properties to it. I would have easily been happy with just taking out, let's just make the artificial mind be able to just information overload or something like that. Not let it be able to manifest mind or let it be a telepathic advisor. In fact, now that I think about it, the telepathic advisor property of the artificial mind just seems really out of place to give the Artificer additional proficiencies. It's opening itself up for to be exploited in its own way for a half elf to become a total skill monkey. And that was probably the old idea of the Artificer. They were a bit more of skill monkeys in 3.5 compared to current. Back in the 3.5 days, they were a bit more skillful except for the rogue and bard, and I was okay if they just made the artificer more of a specialist rather than a jack of all trades. But okay, let's just get back to the next class feature, battle ready. You gain proficiency with martial weapons. When you attack with magic weapons, you can use your intelligence modifier instead of your strength or dex for the attack and damage rolls. That's a pretty big deal in a way that, I don't think there's a lot. Okay, maybe the rogues, the duelists, or was it the mastermind that allows intelligence modifier to affect damage and attack rolls. Let me just see if I can find. So okay, it seems like I've not inputted the rogues. I believe it's the mastermind that actually is the one of the only other subclasses that allows you to add intelligence modifiers. And here's the interesting thing: because it says magic weapon, it also means that if you put an infusion onto a normal weapon, that weapon is already considered a magic weapon, a magic item, and therefore I mean that's just one way to look at it, and therefore it will apply. And do remember that the rogues actually have there's an infusion for enchanting weapons, I believe. So basically, it could be any weapon that the battlesmith picks up, infuses it, and then he uses his intelligence modifier to it. That's actually pretty neat and pretty powerful, because that means the build of the artificer doesn't have to be strength dex based just to make a viable fighter type. And the fact that he also gets proficiency in martial weapons as well. So that's actually a pretty decent class feature. Okay, so next thing is Iron Defender. So by third level, a tinkering in your free time has born you a faithful companion. So you only get the Iron Defender at third level. An Iron Defender, this metallic creature resembles a hound, a cougar, a bear, or another four-legged creature of your choice. It is friendly to you and your companions, and it obeys your commands. See, this creature gains the statistics in the Iron Defender stat block. In combat, the Iron Defender shares your initiative count, but it takes its turn immediately after yours. It can move and use its reaction on its own, but the only action it takes on its turn is the dodge action. Unless you take a bonus action on your turn to command it to take one of the actions in stat blocks, or the dash, disengage, or help action. If the mending spell is cast on it, it regains 2d6 hit points. If it has died within the last hour, you can use your Smith's tools as an action to revive it, provided you are within 5 feet of it and expand the spell slot of first level or higher. The Iron Defender returns to life after 1 minute with all its points restored. At the end of a long rest, you can create a new Iron Defender if you have a Smith's tools with you. If you already have an Iron Defender from this feature, the first one immediately perishes. Alright, so the Iron Defender stat block, we have a medium construct, AC 15, hit points equal to 5 times your level in this class, plus your intelligence modifier, plus Iron Defender's constitution mod, which is 2, skills perception plus 4, damage immunity poison, immune to charm, exhaustion, poison, senses 60 feet dark vision, perception 10, understands the languages you speak. Might of the Master. The following numbers increase by 1, with your proficiency bonus increased by 1. The Iron Defender's skill bonuses, the bonuses to hit, damage to its bites, and the number of hit points restored by its repair action. Vigilant, the Iron Defender can't be surprised. Okay, melee weapon attack. So it's got 2 actions. Requires your bonus action, right? Okay. It can bite for plus 4 to hit. Reach 5 feet, 1 target you see, 1d8 plus 2 piercing, or it can repair itself, restores 2d8 plus 2 hit points to itself or to 1 construct object within 5 feet of it. Okay, so it can actually repair other objects besides itself. Reaction, defensive pounce. The Iron Defender imposes disadvantage on the attack roll of one creature it can see that is within 5 feet of it, provided the attack roll is against a creature other than the Iron Defender. So the defensive pounce is something that the Iron Defender can do on its own without having to be commanded, but for its bite you require it to make the bonus action it requires your bonus action, and if you wanted to disengage, dash, or help, you also require the bonus action. Although I don't really see any real reason why you would want to, like, you can just let the Iron Defender fight to the death, uh, and because it only takes like one spell slot and one action to revive it uh, for 1 minute, or you can just let it die and just build a new one after a long rest. So yeah, so I'm not seeing. I mean, for whatever tactical reasons, there's not a lot of real tactical value, I think, in the Iron Defender. So its attacks are +4, and it will increase gradually as with the Might of the Master, which is your proficiency bonus. So just making some basic comparisons with the alchemical homunculus from the alchemist subclass. I would say this is actually kind of it's relatively weaker than the alchemical homunculus, but it's definitely more straightforward in that way. And it's self-repairing, which the alchemist, the homunculus is not. It actually even deals slightly more damage, but then again, being it only dealing piercing damage compared to the homunculus which deals acid damage, the chance of resistance is probably higher on the Iron Defender rather than the alchemist, than the homunculus. And I think this is going to be like the main, like pretty much like the artificial mind for the archivist. This is going to be like the main feature of the class, of the battlesmith class. And I'm thinking that it doesn't seem too impressive, especially when compared with the artillerists and their arcane turrets. I think the arcane turrets are a little bit uh, more versatile than the Iron Defender. And you can have more of that, whereas you can only have one Iron Defender, you can't have two. I'm not sure if is it a good idea to have a class feature that allows for the Artificer to have more than one Iron Defender. I suspect it might be a feat or ability score improvement. Let's see if the Arcane Jolt makes it better, or any future class features. Alright, so Arcane Jolt. At 6th level, you learn new ways to channel arcane energy through your weapon attacks and your Iron Defender. First, your Iron Defender's attack is now considered magical for the purpose of bypassing resistance and immunities thanks to enhancement you made to the creature in your free time. Second, when your Iron Defender hits a target with a magic weapon attack, you can channel magic energy through the strike to create one of the following effects. The target takes an extra 2d4 force damage. Choose one creature or object you can see within 30 feet of the target. Healing energy flows into the chosen recipient, restoring 2d4 hit points into it. You can channel this magic energy a number of times equal to your ability modifier, minimum once, but you can do so no more than once on a turn. You regain or expanded uses of this when you finish a long rest. Okay, let's see. 2d4 on damage at level 6, or 2d4 healing on an object you can see within 30 feet. So that's interesting. I don't have a black or white way to say good or bad. 2d4 may not feel like a lot. It's basically a potion of healing without the intelligence modifier, and you can only do it number of times equal to your intelligence modifier. So we're looking at a range of maximum of between 4 to 5 by level 6, and you can only regain expanded by after a long rest, and you can choose between extra damage or healing. I think it's fair. I think it's a fair. It balances itself out overall. I can't foresee any situations where this can be made into be a bit more powerful than it sounds. Yeah, because it has to be a magic weapon or the Iron Defender. So the Iron Defender in its own way becomes more. So in other words, the Iron Defender can do an extra 2d4 damage, and this doesn't scale. And there's no way to improve it, I think. Maybe at the last one. Okay, Improved Defender. At 14th level, your Arcane Jolt and Iron Defender becomes more powerful, right? So there it is. The extra damage and the healing of your arcane jolt both the extra damage and the healing of your arcane jolt both increases to 4d4, which is not a lot because that's only like between 4 to 16 extra damage. Whenever your other defender uses his defensive powers, the attacker takes force damage equal to 1d4 plus your intelligence modifier. This is definitely much more milder compared to the artificial mind, whereas the artificial mind has a whole set. You know, you can modify the number of dice, you can increase by the number of modifiers, but the Iron Defender and it's indestructible compared to your Iron Defender is much weaker compared to the artificial mind, I think. And even I feel that this improved defender, especially when you're getting it at level 14, doesn't really add anything to the lethality of the Iron Defender. I don't think the Iron Defender is going to be any great, because Iron Defender only has a 15 natural AC, and the AC doesn't increase. Yeah, the AC doesn't increase. Hit points are limited. I mean, like even at level 20, what's it got? It's got 100 plus intelligence modifier plus con mod, which is only 2, which is only at best another 40. So it's like only got like 140 to 50 hit points at most. Which at level 20, that's probably a bit substantial, but no, it's still nothing compared to being totally indestructible. There's no means for the artificial mind to be destroyed in any way. Yeah, so despite what most people say, I would actually find the Iron Defender Battlesmith class to be quite underwhelming. And it definitely seems to be built towards being a more attacker role with the smite spells. And its aura spells are more of just basic support. Which brings to my question, I'm not sure what armor proficiencies does the Artificer have. Are they proficient in heavy white armor? Because that will actually give a little bit more role. There's more role for the Artificer, that's the case. So they're only proficient in medium armor. I think it wouldn't be too bad if the Battlesmith was actually given proficiency in heavy armor and maybe and martial weapons. Alright, that'd be fine. If the Iron Defender is going to be this weak, I think I would have liked to see the amount of customability on the Iron Defender than on the Artificial Mind. And I think if the Iron Defender had the same teleportation powers from the Artificial Mind, which I can easily visualize with the Iron Defender more than the Artificial Mind, I think they would actually make this subclass a bit more viable. In my book, I think the Iron Defender is really not that great. I may even consider one of the weaker ones among the 4 subclasses. Okay, yeah. So that's what I think. Someone else can add on to it and let me know what they are thinking. Let me see. So new infusions. So the new infusions, what Jeremy Crawford mentioned, there are only 3: Enhanced Wand, Repeating Shot, and Repulsion Skill. Enhanced Wand. So when holding this wand, the creature gains +1 bonus to spell attacks. In addition, the creature ignores half cover when making a spell attack. Making a spell attack, the bonus is +2 when you reach 12th level of this class. So in terms of the scaling, it's nothing different from what it previously had, which is enhanced weapon and enhanced defense. Although it's interesting that they are giving this for wands, but that actually gives, and this is going to be the must-have infusion for the artillery's class. And it's actually kind of interesting that they are allowing them to ignore half cover, because let me see. I think you needed a feat to ignore half cover. Yeah, Spell Sniper allows you to ignore half and 3/4 cover. So this is kind of like a minor feat roll into the infusion. And it requires, okay, so the downside is it requires attunement. Well, the wands requires attunement anyways. So I'm not too sure if I could live, if they took out the half cover part. I think it would have been just fine as it is.
because this is definitely something the artillerists would really want. And I guess that's all there is to say about the enhanced wand, because it makes sense to have this. I can't recall if 3.5 in 3.5 did they keep like a similar concept of enhancing certain things for all the magical items categories, because you already currently you have weapon, you have wand, you have defense, which applies to armors and shields. I don't think there's anything else to enhance other than those that are just already existent. Reading weapons already there. Alright, so I think the most controversial or the most talked about is definitely the repeating shot infusion, because there, like I think in my previous video, and also in the discussions that I've seen about the first iteration, the previous iteration of the Artificer class, is that there's definitely a lot of talk about that confusion of what exactly does the repeating ability of the infusion can do. And I think this is the answer to that. The answer is it can be put on a simple or martial weapon with the ammunition property, requires attunement. This magic weapon gains +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls, which is the same as the enhanced weapon. When it's used to make a range attack, and it ignores the loading property if it has it. So by ignoring the loading property, and we have to look what does the loading property do. And bear in mind, this is not the only Crossbow Expert also has the same wording, that it ignores the loading property. So basically what you have here is basically a infusion that basically acts like Crossbow Expert, but not as great. And let's see, and so there's that. So in the loading property, it says because of the time required to load this weapon, you can only fire one piece of ammunition from it when you use an action, a bonus action, or reaction to fire it, regardless of the number of attacks you can normally make. Okay. Oh, okay. So I may have mistaken it for something else. Because what I was looking for was that whole sub rule about you requiring a free hand to load a weapon, but apparently that's not controlled by the loading property. That's controlled by the ammunition property. Sorry. So that actually doesn't solve a lot of problems then. So you still require the free hand, but because we ignore the loading property, you can fire as many as long as you have a free hand. So that doesn't actually solve any weapons. But I think that's where the second part comes in. The weapon requires no ammunition. It magically produces one piece of ammunition each time you make a ranged attack with it, unless you manually load it. The ammunition produced by the weapon vanishes the instant after it hits or misses the target. So I think that means they haven't really answered their question then, because it still has an ammunition property, and it still says that you require to load a weapon with ammunition property with a free hand, but it produces one piece of ammunition each time you make a ranged attack with it. So I think that's going to be a big matter of debate, because people are going to say that it produces an ammunition as part of the attack, which is in the case also true, even though if for a normal non-magical ammunition based weapon, like for example the bows, but the only real upside is that you don't have to keep track of any sort of ammunition. Like you don't need any bolts, you don't need any crossbow bolts, you don't need any arrows. And bear in mind also that you can do this. This is an infusion. That means you can do it on an item, and you can just pass it to someone else. And you can pass it, and obviously you want to pass it to someone who uses a crossbow or a crossbow in general sense, because they ignore the loading property. So I can kind of understand this is somewhat like similar to the design concept with the enhanced wand, in the sense that this is like a mini feat. But thankfully, I think if they said that it ignores the ammunition property, now that would be a problem. But that will make it a lot more powerful. But I think by ignoring the loading property, then I don't think that's as powerful as most people think. Although that's actually less reasons why people want to take the crossbow expert feat. Although there are actually there are actually a lot more other reasons why you want to take the crossbow expert feat. But yeah, okay, if that's the case, I don't think uh, that's that challenging to me. Now my question would be, if what do you can you stack repeating shot with enhanced weapon? And I'm gonna have to look at the ruling for infusions. I'm looking through it on the previous version because I don't want to lose the page, but so there may be some changes there that I have not noticed, but let's just hope there's none. Now infuse items. The magic items you create with application prototypes and prototype items. So when you gain this feature, infusing items. So it seems to me they did not explicitly state that you cannot infuse more than one. Your infuse if the items requires you can tune it, or you can forego it. You can infuse more than one if you give up your knowledge. Okay. So it doesn't explicitly state that you can put more than one infusions on the same item. Yeah. Although the wording seems to suggest that you can only infuse one item at a time. I mean one infusion on one item, but it doesn't have that clause of restricting you from infusing the same item more than once. So that's gonna be a bit of a debate, because what happens if you infuse something with repeating shot and enhanced weapon? Does it become a +2 to damage and attack roll? Because that's at low levels that can be a big boost. As minor as it sounds, but yeah, that's definitely a gray area that needs to be addressed at some point. Interestingly enough, I'm doing this video, I've not seen Wizards of the Coast have been asking any feedback or done any, they have not released this feedback survey for the Artificer class yet, so I don't know which one I would send to them if they do ask for it, because I have both and I don't think they would take the liberty to listen to both to see how my opinion changed on the Artificer class. But I think we just have to move on from that. So the next infusion is Repulsion Skill. So Repulsion Skill, prerequisite 8th level Artificer. Item, a shield, requires attunement. A creature gains +1 bonus to armor class while wielding the shield. While holding it, the wielder can use a reaction to immediately. The wielder can use a reaction immediately after being hit by a melee weapon to push the attacker up to 5 feet away. Once used, the reaction can't be used again until the wielder finishes a short or long rest. Very odd ability for something that you require 8th level to get, to push someone 15 feet away. I guess you can kind of see the combo with the Sentinel. But remember, you can only use this once. Thankfully, this one doesn't have a size restriction. So I don't know. I feel like this one just comes off as little, not so powerful for 8th level infusion. I think there are better ways. I think there are, if you're gonna have like a very quirky infusion like this one that does only pretty much one thing, and remember, this is going to raise back the same question of what happens if I have a repulsion shield with an enchanted armor, enchanted defense item. Does it stack? Does it turn my shield into a +2 shield, and then has this extra ability where I can repulse things 15 feet away? That's that one question. And the second thing is, if you're gonna do this sort of funky ones, and I thought that was kind of the idea when they generalized everything under replicable magic items. They didn't want to have like a whole long list of each infusion doing something particularly special, rather just putting it as one infusion and giving you a whole variety of choices to do that. I would think the Repulsion Shield would have easily fit into one of those areas, you know, under a different infusion rather than having its own infusion. So let's see what else is there. So I think that's pretty much about it. The only last known changes that was mentioned was the multi-classing rules, where they calculated the spell slots by rounding up rather than rounding down. I may have mentioned that this was actually out of the ordinary for multi-classing rules in general. So the rounding down might have been an exception, and so making it round up might is just standardizing it to the current design. So let's just see if I'm on the money here. Let me see spell slots. No, actually, it is still the base rules is rounded down, and now they are allowing you to round up. So what are the repercussions of it rounding up? Well, it's definitely more advantageous, and that actually technically means that when you by multi-classing as an artificer, you're almost about one level ahead if you was multi-classing with anything else. Is there any real good reason to do that? Because remember, if someone multi-class as wizard sorcerer, they will still have to calculate their spell slot by level rounding down. And the artificer going rounding up, that actually makes the artificer one of the favorite classes that you want to multi-class with. And given some of the subclass features that you get as an artificer, for example, like the artificer mine, I think it's probably worth burning 3 levels for it before multi-classing into something else. So that's actually very encouraging for everyone to dip in a few levels of Artificer, which I'm not exactly sure that's going to be a good thing, although that probably makes a little bit of sense to a certain degree for the Eberron setting. But on the min-max OP optimized build, that's actually a very unhealthy incentive to provide. So I don't know exactly what was the reasoning that Jeremy Crawford or Wizards was wanted with this, to give an exception, to make the Artificer an exception. But if that was the case, I would have definitely much preferred it to stick to the original design if it's not going to give similar classes the right incentive at the same time. Yeah, but I guess this is something that the numbers will speak for itself, and I you know, as much as I'm not good with numbers, I still don't I currently don't see any game changing impact. It's better, but I don't think it's game breakingly good. So yeah, so I guess that's all I have to say for the new Artificer of the new subclasses. What do I think of Archivist? I think the Archivist is a little bit overblown in concept, and veers a little bit too on the powerful side in terms of what you can do, which is the total opposite with the Battlesmith, which I feel is a bit more underwhelming than it sounds, and yeah, you know, it would, the Battlesmith doesn't really add any wow factor. I think the wow factor here is the Archivist, but as the name itself suggests, I would definitely prefer if the artificial mind was less of a damage dealing prop entity, more than something that provides more divination properties, you know, as the name suggests. And I don't know exactly what is Wizards thinking of going with this. Some are saying that this could be a prelude to the psionics rule sets by Mike Morrows, which I guess makes some sense, but I rather they not make the Archivist a guinea pig subclass design, because later on when the full psionics rules appear, it's gonna undercut the viability of the Archivist subclass. And then they will come into the same old debates of whether the DM should allow psionics or not in their campaign, and then they would say that the Archivist is technically not the psionics. It's not a psionics version of the class. It's still driven by magic, as the flavor itself explains it.
All right. Repeating shot ex covers, answers certain questions, but also creates new questions of its own. Repulsion Skill is unnecessary in my book, totally. And what else is that? There was the enhanced one. Enhanced one is probably like my favorite among the new infusions. But even then, it's a pretty bland infusion, except with the extra minor feat ability folding into it, which probably makes it a bit more better than the other two enhanced versions of that something. So yeah, so I think that's all I'm just gonna have to say for now. I mean, I wasn't expecting major changes with these revisions, but I think my general comments about it is just alright. Oh, I also forgot to mention the spell list of the new of this version of the Artificer is that it's basically still the same thing, but they've just added some spells from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and up to yeah. So basically, every level they get some bunch of a few new spells, except for no, yeah, every level gets a few the new spells from Xanathars, which I think none of them really stands out to be not what I expect from for the Artificer. So I guess that'll be all for tonight. That's more than enough already being said. And maybe and hopefully Wizards are still working on this. I think I would like to see one more iteration of the Artificer before it goes into print in whatever shape or form that it will be. So if any of you have anything to say about the Artificer, the new Artificer, about Battlesmith or the Archivist, let me know in the comments if you want to share your thoughts. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. So this is the Question GM signing out for now. Bye.